Hi, I'm Kate Powell. I'm Vice President Education at the SRC and I'm running to be the next President.
What are your views on the current President's administration and what would you do differently?
Obviously I think there's quite a lot to improve on, otherwise I wouldn't be running for a President. I think we can engage more with a lot of policy development out with the university. I think that EMEA has engaged quite a lot with international students and home students this year, and I hope to expand on that. But there's a lot of, I think that we can be more political as an organisation. We can engage more in policy decisions, we can engage more in the teaching excellence framework and the developments with that, and also with EU student fees. I think that there's a lot that, that can be done.
Okay. Specifically about policy development, what would you like to see done there?
Within the university? Well, one thing that I really want to work with the next VP Ed on is the lecture recording policy. We have a lecture recording policy, we have done for a few years, and it states that it's up to the lecturer's discretion to record lectures or not. And it's great that we have this policy because we can refer to it, and it's something that the SRC pushed for, and it was by us for the students. I think that we really need to expand on that. Most students need lecture recording. It's an excellent support mechanism, and we have a lot of facilities now that can support this kind of software. So I really want to make sure that we kind of update the policy and make it that, you know, if you are teaching in a lecture theatre that has this software, Echo 360, that lecturers are encouraged to, that lecturers have to use this software. So for that is a good policy example of what I want to do within the university that is reasonable. Yeah.
Okay. What makes it feasible to do now?
I think because the thing is, the university really needs to kind of move with the times, and we don't have, not every student at the university learns through lectures now. It used to be that it was very much like lectures, seminars, labs. Things are moving very quickly. We've got these technology-enhanced active learning spaces. Students need to kind of learn in their own space, in their own time. Students with disabilities need this kind of support, and I think the university is doing a lot to address these students' needs.
Right.
And they can do a lot more for that. I think that lecture recording needs to be presented to the university as a support mechanism, and that's something I have done throughout my time as VP, but I think it really needs the push from the president who sits on the high level committees. It needs to be on court's agenda, it needs to be on Senate's agenda, and I think that I can push that through.
Right. Well, what about lecturer opposition, like breach of intellectual property right? How would that be smoothed over?
The thing is, we have had no problems. Well, I've heard of no problems in the university against lecture recording. I've no abuses of intellectual property, and I've heard no evidence to suggest that attendance is affected by lecture recording. So when staff present these arguments, we need really well-trained, supportive reps, class reps and academic reps who can say, present the arguments and say, let's be constructive with this. This is what the students want. Why are we not moving with this?
Okay. Where have you got this? These facts that lecture attendance isn't?
Well, we have quite a few schools now that have lecture recording. None of them have gone back on it. None of them have said we're not going to do lecture recording anymore. When they do their periodic subject review, which is like a kind of, it's every 6 years they look at the progress and then they look where they want to be. None of them have said, oh, lecture recording, we've had problems with it. It's all about, we need a bit more support, but we want to be moving in this direction. And also, we really, they put it in the things that they do well, and I think that says something about the schools, and it's something that we need to be just sharing best practice on.
Okay. Now, the SRC has been getting a lot of heat recently for the amount of uncontested positions.
Okay.
Do you see this as a problem?
Well, I think it's always not, it's not great to have uncontested positions. I mean, I can speak for my own position. I was disappointed when I saw that I was uncontested. I ran thinking I'd be contested, and still we'll put in exactly the same campaign. I think the best thing about having contested elections is that you have students from all over the university present ideas and come up with talk about student issues that maybe we haven't addressed. Like I said to you earlier, if this a student who comes saying that they want to introduce an initiative that's already been introduced, it means that we can say we're not communicating that to students. So there is a benefit of having contested elections. When we have uncontested elections, we need to make sure that there are support mechanisms in place to ensure that, for example, if we have an uncontested school rep, the college convener can hold class rep meetings for them, they can support them in the work that they do, and try and make sure that we have quality representation.
Do you have any ambition to attempt to get students more engaged in the SRC in order for there to be the likelihood of more contested positions?
In the October elections, I think that there's a lot more that we can do. I think we don't really do much kind of evaluation on the class reps, not the class reps, sorry, the school, the general reps, the welfare reps and the equal opportunities reps. We don't really tell people about what these reps have done, and I think that if students knew more about what they've done and what they've achieved, they might think, oh, I want to achieve that, I feel I have an interest in that, and then be encouraged to run. And I think that it's just about promoting the work that we actually do.
Right.
For example, I really want to promote the fact, some of the work our advice centre does. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't know until I was a sabbatical officer that they helped, students get £55,000 back last year.
Right.
In financial gains, and that sort of stuff needs to be transparent, but it's not something that we should just be saying, oh, all students should know about this. Like, we should be telling them this so that they feel like they want to get involved in us, so that we can help improve the student experience together.
Right, well, what future platforms would you put in place so that students would be more aware of the work that the SRC does?
I think we can really improve our communications. The university is looking at the way that they communicate to students through, the student portal, My Glasgow. They're looking at the way that we have campus newsletters and email, the social media. They've recently hired a social media team. We need to work kind of in parallel with them independently and make sure that we're pushing our agenda through the same kind of ways that students will listen to us, like through social media, through our website, through word of mouth, through posters. This year is the first year that we've had academic rep posters, their faces in buildings on campus with a description about what they do and how to contact them.
One of your manifesto pledges was to have a rating system for landlords. Does the SRC not need to get its own house in order as regards to the university accommodation, which has widely been reported as been far too expensive for what it is?
Yeah. So as of the 1st of February, Anne Allen, who is Director of Estates and Buildings, took over from Campus Services. We have a really positive working relationship with Anne, I would say, and most people in the SRC would also say.
Right.
Now is the time that we make sure that we address the needs of students regarding the accommodation. So I am VP Ed, and my remit is not necessarily to deal with accommodation, but it's all student issues.
It's in your manifesto then.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that a few weeks ago I took the initiative and emailed Anne Allen and set up a meeting to discuss accommodation with her, with the head of residential services, the head of campus services as well. Like, I'm taking the initiative to do these things to make sure that Murano is not fit for purpose.
Right.
It's all the accommodation is absolutely overpriced, and we are competing with private companies who are charging the same, if not more.
Right.
And then it's kind of this never-ending cycle of the quality is not improving, but the price is. We need to make sure that we're really active in these discussions right now when Anna's taken over and is reviewing the current provisions. So I will make sure that we are kind of in these conversations from the get-go.
Okay.
And we'll be prioritising the current needs of students.
Okay. So, but is there any progress being made as regards to rent?
There was progress made a few years ago, 2 years ago, when, less than 2 years ago even, when we put a motion to council for the university to buy back halls from Glasgow Student Village. That was approved, so now university has control over rent.
Yeah.
We followed up with that this year, and now the university has control over the rent. So now is the time. It's obviously taken a while for the contracts to go back, but if the university has control of the rent, that's a really good kind of way for us to get in there. We also haven't really established any representative structures or any committees that are dealing with halls. The university loves committees, let's be honest. They love setting up working groups. We need to make sure that if they're thinking about setting up these working groups, we have representation on all these levels.
What other revenue streams are open to the university if student numbers aren't going to be inflated?
I think it's a difficult one because students make the university go round. So if the students are, that they are satisfied and their student experience is really good, then we attract high quality staff and students who then allow for more revenue for the university to fund its new campus. But I also think that at the moment we're kind of pushing the student experience to one side and kind of thinking about the future, which means that the NSS scores show that the university is not doing as well as it wants to. the kind of the support mechanisms in place, the funding for student experience is poor. We need to make sure that we're doing a lot for the students now in order to attract quality students and staff in order to pay for the new campus. So.
Cool. Would you say that there is a culture of unoriginality in the SRC regarding policy?
When I wrote my manifesto, I sat down and said, I want to write things that, it doesn't just come across as the kind of standard, like, accommodation, policy, SRC, but these issues keep coming back because they are the issues to students. When I was in a committee meeting a few weeks ago, we were talking about the student journey, and we were looking at what's really bad about the student journey, and we got down to talking about something like emails from second year to third year. There is things on campus that are really poor: teaching spaces, study spaces, accommodation. These things we need to address, which is why that they keep coming up. The problem is we're not necessarily making the right progress. Things like Wednesday afternoons. How many times have you heard Wednesday afternoons on a manifesto? Exactly. But this year, as VP Ed, I've made sure that we kind of address things in a more constructive way. So last week I was in a meeting with Central Timetable, and we've decided that if lecturers are going to log classes on a Wednesday afternoon, in their kind of process, it says that lecturers must have either lecture recording software, or they must offer alternative labs or tutorials, and that sort of thing is progress. But I think that students come into the job thinking, okay, well, we're going to tackle the world. It's not about that. It's about making realistic changes, and I've done that as VP Ed, and I want to do that as president. If
you were to be elected, you would be a court member and a trustee of the university. If a situation were to come up, would you put the long-term stability of the university ahead of student benefit, or student benefit ahead of long-term stability of the university?
Tough question. Obviously, well, it's about student benefit. Like that's what we're here for. We're here to represent the interests of students.
Surely students are benefited by a stable university.
Pardon? Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, students want the same. Students want what they want, and staff want what they want, and they marry up quite well when staff and students work together in partnership. So if the university is just going to make a decision on rest of UK students' fees, for example, and they say, oh, we think it's a really good investment to move the fees from 3 years to 4 years, which I don't think they will, but say if they were going to do something like that, and that's a long-term financial benefit for the university that's going to lead to more money and then a big better learning and teaching hub, for example. Or we're talking about fees for rest of UK students just now. It is about making sure that the university has its priorities in place. It has accessibility and inclusion in place, and it makes sure that whatever we do is in the interest of students, and we don't kind of sideline student benefit ever. It's about working in partnership with those things.
You mentioned you wanted more representation for underrepresented groups on your manifesto. Could you be a bit more specific?
Okay, so at the moment we have 4 general representatives on council. They don't have any specific role or responsibility. They just sit as a representative. They have no official committee responsibility at all, and a lot of the time I think that they're trying to find issues. We also have, last year we discussed the possibility of having a home students officer and a religion belief equality officer. And there were kind of problems to do with whether or not that would be possible. We don't want to increase the number of council. We didn't necessarily know if having a religion belief equality officer, for example, would mean that we have the head of the Gumsa running against the head of the Catholic Association. We discussed these issues, and I think that one way of dealing with these underrepresented groups is to have the general reps have more responsibility for liaising with these people, these students even, or on these issues. For example, on accommodation, we obviously have first year students, but who deal with halls, for example, but there's more problems to do with accommodation.
I see. And have students of faith and faith organisations come to you and raise this as an issue?
Yeah, so last week Erin, our Vice President for Student Support, had a welfare forum where we invited students of faith to come along. We had the university chaplain, the religious belief champion, Neil Juster, the senior vice principal, and we also had some welfare representatives, and we also came along to chat about how we can best represent these groups, how we can provide the space for these groups of students, how we can look at the policy, and that sort of way is a great way to kind of tease out what the needs of these students are, and also look at how we can represent them. And I think that discussing that council don't necessarily feel like we need that position, but if these students feel like they need representation, we need to really carefully look at the structures in the SRC and the university.
Thanks very much, Kate.
Thank you.
That's
Cheers.
great.